Hello and welcome, my fellow modeling and tabletop gaming enthusiasts, to the Mediocre Modeler Show. So I wanted to try and get this video out as soon as possible. Decided not to try and do it while I was at Adepticon, so I got back just earlier today, and I'm going to try and get this thing out for everyone. We're going to talk about the Konflikt 47 preview event at Adepticon, the Thursday night of Adepticon, so just about three, 4 nights ago. I took notes throughout the entire presentation and posted to Facebook and Reddit. Got a lot of responses, most of them pretty positive. You're never going to win everybody over, unfortunately. That's just kind of how it goes. So I found out about the preview event like earlier in the week before heading out. It might have been like the weekend before. Unfortunately, it was too late to register for it. Of course, it was Thursday night at Adepticon. And when I stopped by the registration booth Wednesday night, pick up my dice, I asked him, I figured I'd probably have to wait till the next day to actually register for it. But one of the guys at the booth said, just show up. I know they don't really count all that, but I wanted to not be terrible. But by the time that the event actually was scheduled to start, it was showing only 12% of the seats had been reserved. But by the time the event started, it was standing room only. It wasn't a terribly huge room. I think the maximum capacity was around 100. Not every seat was occupied. There were a lot of singles scattered throughout, but there were people lining the walls for the whole presentation. So you could tell that people were really interested in it. And it was presented mainly by Peter Gosling, who is the head of marketing and product development at Warlord Games. For lack of a better term, he's kind of the product owner for Konflikt 47 now. And Colin Stone, who is the head of finance as well as one of the lead play testers for this new edition of Konflikt 47, was there as well. And they had Gav Thorpe as well, who's part of the writing team for new Konflikt 47, I guess you could call it, or second edition, whatever you want to call it. So I've got, like I said, about 2 pages of notes here. So we'll just kind of go over some of that stuff. Everyone has probably seen the preview sort of splash art that they've got. It looks like a German mechanized paratrooper. Pretty cool. Definitely kind of a different tone than what we've seen in the past, and that is definitely going to be playing into kind of I don't want to say a new theme to Konflikt 47, but, and I don't want to say grimdark, but a lot of the artwork that we've seen, in the rule books and the expansion books in the past is, green fields and blue skies is how they described it. It is not going to be that anymore. If you look at, World War II, I think the example that Pete cited specifically was Dresden. It was very grim and it was very dark during the Second World War. And the demo table that they had was very much in that theme. It had ruined buildings and lights lighting up smoke and flames, and they even have little smoke generators in the table. And I did get a quick demo game, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But kind of just to go through some of the stuff that they presented. And you can check the Warlord Games community website, has a rundown of most of what they released. Nothing that I'm going to tell you in this video is in any way, shape, or form insider information. This was all within the presentation. The article that they put out on the community website didn't have all of that, quite that same information, but I did get the blessing to go, to post it and to talk about it freely, to let everybody know that couldn't be there, because a lot of people are kind of disappointed that it wasn't live streamed at all. Which would have been tough to do. The event started at 8 p.m. on a Thursday night, and that is U.S. Central Time. So it would have been 9 o'clock in New York City. It would have been 6 o'clock in Los Angeles, and then 4 in the morning. No, not that late. 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning in the UK. But basically, Konflikt 47, they want to change the feel of it so that it's not just bolt action with Konflikt 47 models. They want Konflikt 47 to have its own feel. And they kind of reiterated that they really do love Konflikt 47. And they've, some of the community sentiment in the last 2 years has just been kind of that they abandoned it and they didn't care about it, which could not be further from the truth. They truly do love the game. they had a lot on their plate the last couple of years, especially with Bolt Action 3rd Edition just releasing this past summer, and they wanted to get it right. And they're still working on that. And you're not going to get everything right out of the gate, especially, but and so they're taking their time, and they're trying to really, I don't want to say polish it, but they're trying to get it to have its own feel. And one thing, we talk about this grimdark aesthetic. I was talking to Pete the day after, and I just, kind of expressed, a little bit of concern in the back of my mind. It's like, I don't want you to try and chase like the Warhammer 40K aesthetic. And, he assured me that not at all what they're trying to do, because the Konflikt 47 universe is an alternate universe of our own, where, at the point of the rift emerging is the point of divergence between our reality now and the reality of Konflikt 47. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that kind of ties it back to that 1940s feel. The artwork that was previewed looks fantastic. Again, it really kind of steps away from that green fields and blue skies feel, and definitely gives it that very war-torn appearance. So I'm going to keep looking down at my notes and everything just to make sure that I kind of get some of this stuff right. The rule set is going to be based on Bolt Action 3rd Edition, which I'm excited about. The main thing that excites me about that is the platoon selection rules. I really like the way they kind of revamped that in 3rd Edition Bolt Action. So instead of being limited to, one tank, something like that, where you could have an armored platoon, so you could run, a tank and a scout car, or a tank and a self-propelled gun, or self-propelled anti-aircraft vehicle of some sort. And you could still, legally do that with your artillery and your machine guns and your infantry sections. So that I'm actually really excited about. And the reason I'm excited about that is the prospect of running Walker platoons, or Tesla Sherman platoons. I think would be really kind of cool. I'm just thinking, I've got all of these pond skaters and jackals and coyotes and stuff, and I think that would be really cool to just have platoons of those running across the board. The Rift is going to take a much bigger place in not only the lore, but in the game mechanics themselves. So there's some kind of new mechanics that are going to be added to the game based around the Rift. So you're going to have new Rift tech and new Rift tech units and weapons, and they're going to have a new dice pool. There's going to be Rift dice, and they're basically just it's a standard D6. There's 3 different states. I think there's active, surging, and exhausted. So I think 3 of the faces are exhausted, 2 of them are active, 1 of them is surging. I don't know specifically the mechanics of how you're going to draw those yet. They kind of explained them, but the night after I got my demo game, I engaged in some shenanigans, and the memory got a little fuzzy. But that's going to be, so the Rift dice are going to basically allow you to power Rift tech units. So the best example of, say, a Rift tech unit, what is versus what is not. So what is not, say a Tiger II with a railgun, would not be a Rift tech unit, because it just uses magnets to propel a solid slug at super high speeds. Whereas a Tesla Sherman relies on Rift energy to power its weapon. It still uses gas or diesel, depending on if it's an M4A2 or M4A3. But it still uses Rift energy to power that Tesla cannon. Like your heavy infantry would be Rift tech units, because they rely on that Rift energy to power those suits. Things like monsters, I'm not so sure about. So your Totenkor, or Schweckwolfen, or your the Russian bears, Ursa, whatever you want to call them. I don't know if those qualify. Knockjaggers, I don't know if those qualify as Rift tech units. But I know they do want to make monsters kind of a bigger part of the game, which I think is going to be really cool. But yeah, Rift Tech is going to be a big thing, and the Rift is going to play a much bigger role in the game and the gameplay than it did previously. Heroes are also going to be another bigger piece of the game. So there's been heroes in the past. I'm thinking of like Slammer Samuels, and you had some named characters for the German side, um, and they intend for it to be for them to be a bigger part of the game. Special abilities they have. I'm trying to think of this because this is kind of a mechanic we studied. We went over briefly in the demo game. They'll have like a number of dice that represent, luck or grit or something like that that will allow you to modify different things. I know in my demo game, I used them to modify a dice roll. I mean, I was well below what I needed a dice roll on what I needed to succeed. So I spent my 3 points from my hero unit to modify that dice roll to the point where it was a success. But it would do other things. Which let's go back to the Rift Tech stuff real quick. So the Rift dice will allow you to like supercharge weapons. This is one thing I do remember again from the demo game. Supercharge weapons, increase movement or something like that, and you would exhaust those dice doing that. And I mentioned previously the 3 states: exhausted, active, and surging. When you use the Rift dice, I think, especially if the state of the Rift dice is surging, not only you will get a bonus to whatever action it is you're trying to apply to the unit, but there are also detrimental effects because the Rift, it's uncontained, it's unpredictable. So there's also the very distinct possibility that you will do harm to yourself by using it in a certain state. So I think that nice little bit of unpredictability. It's like gets hot weapons in Horus Heresy, where you roll a 1 and you've just killed yourself rather than your opponent using plasma weaponry. So, yeah, heroes again, they're going to be a bigger part of the game, and there will be more stuff like that. Bolt action compatibility. That was kind of a big question. It will be, again, it's going to be based off of the 3rd edition bolt action rules. Yes, it's compatible. Yes, ... Again, with wanting Conflict 47 to have its own feel, you're going to get, I don't want to say you're going to have a better experience, but you will be more effective using Conflict 47 units for Conflict 47. I kind of misspoke, I think, in one of the posts I made on Facebook, where anything that's in bolt action you can use in Conflict 47. I don't necessarily think that is entirely correct. Any Conflict 47 unit that is currently available will be perfectly playable. I mean, you can use any Conflict 47 units you have in the new Conflict 47. Plain bolt action units. So if you're just running a plain infantry squad, it will not be anywhere near as effective as a comparable basic infantry squad that's Conflict 47. Tanks and artillery will still blow stuff up, but it was best described to me as a basic squad of Marines, which is what I'm working on now, would just be red streaks. So, to be honest, I'm a little bit torn on that because I kind of liked how you would mix and match, but at the same time, I do like the fact that there will be more dedicated Conflict 47 units. Going along with that, there will be new Conflict 47 models. The range will be moving, the existing models will be moving to plastic and Warlord resin. So I think all of the Conflict 47 models are either resin or metal or a combination of the two. They will all be moving to either plastic or Warlord resin, which I do like working with. Don't get me wrong. One of the reasons I do like working with, or I like basic Warlord infantry stuff, because I like some of the white metal stuff. The combination kits are a little, okay, I got it. They're still cool. They're not as easy to work with. So it's really cool. I like the Warlord resin. I think it's nice and relatively easy to work with. It's soft enough that you don't have as much of a concern about stuff breaking if you were to drop it. Excuse me. So that is, I think, a really good thing. There's going to be new kits coming out. They previewed one of them in the community article. They just showed the silhouette. That's all we saw in the presentation was just the silhouettes. I think they showed us 4, and one of them was huge. And it could have been just the way they scaled it, but it had, you know, a little infantry figure and then something big. I don't know what it is, but it's moving to plastic. It's moving to resin. So that is going to be really awesome. But again, anything that you use in Konflikt 47 that's, you know, that is Konflikt 47 branded. So, you know, that's got this on it right here is coming to the new edition. You will still be able to use some units. I don't know if there are going to be, you know, relatively obscure units. So like, I don't know if I could run my War Dog teams in Konflikt 47, or if you could run Katyusha, a Russian rocket launcher truck, in the new edition. I do know that, again, the effectiveness will be less than a dedicated branded Konflikt 47 unit. And it's not so that you can't, you know, use one army for both games or one army with limited, you know, extra models. It's to really kind of give it that own feel. That's certainly not to say that you can't do it and that you wouldn't be able to still enjoy it. But that's, again, part of the feel to make Konflikt 47 really its own game, which is admirable because, you know, as we all know, when you know, Konflikt 47 started as a bolt action supplement. So it's really cool to see it moving on to its own. I mean, it's kind of like with Horus Heresy, kind of started as a Forge World supplement to Warhammer 40K. And then it just kind of took on a life of its own. And I think we're seeing that with Konflikt 47, which is really cool. To start, there will be 5 factions. So you're going to have your Axis, which the question did come up. I think you're going to have like Italy is going to be kind of rolled in with the Axis for now. And of course, they do plan on expanding everything out, the Finns, possibly Hungarians, things like that. But it's just a matter of time, you know, and they've been working at this for a while. You know, they're trying really hard to get it right. And then, you know, get this done and then get down the road, start expanding and start, you know, making it even greater. So, of course, we're going to have the Axis. Then we're going to have the United States, the British Commonwealth, the Soviet bloc countries, and, of course, the Empire of Japan. So those are going to be your 5 main factions to start out. We didn't really get into if, you know, if the rule book is going to be like the bolt action rule book where it's going to have all those army lists to start, or if there's going to be, you know, armies of supplements. My guess is probably not for this, but then there might be, you know, expansions later on like Defiance and Resurgence. Something I was thinking about, I lost my train of thought on that. Oh, yes. So they do plan on introducing new starter sets. I didn't get much more, and I think they do plan on them being at launch. But I'm not entirely sure if it's going to be like the current ones where we've got, you know, faction starters. So a US starter, Germany starter, British Commonwealth starter, or if they're going to introduce a 2-player starter set, which would be pretty cool. But there will be new starters. One thing that was kind of teased was, you know, new weapons like a Thompson X, which is like a Rift Tech Thompson that, you know, for those that are not firearms enthusiasts, this kind of tickled me a little bit. I love the Thompson. Never shot one, never held one, but it fires a 45 ACP round, which is a pistol cartridge because it was a submachine gun. The 45 ACP, it's a heckin' chonker of a round. It's nearly half an inch in bore diameter, but it's slow. You know, something like 850 feet per second is the muzzle velocity, whereas you have something like a 9mm pellet Parabellum, 9mm Luger, 9mm NATO, whatever you want to call it, you know, something much higher, you know, 1100, 1200, 1300 feet per second muzzle velocity. But what a Thompson X does is takes a Thompson and basically supercharges it with Rift energy. So it's firing that 45 ACP round off a lot quicker. So that's pretty cool. And they previewed some 3D mock-ups of it that looked pretty neat. I mean, it looked like a Thompson with an underslung grenade launcher, which at first I thought it was like a grenade launcher Thompson, but then they said, you know, Thompson X Rift energy. So that was pretty cool, I thought. So the very last thing, which has already been announced, is this is coming out fourth quarter of 2025. So it is coming out later this year. So we just got to be patient. They've had the playtest rules for a little while, doing internal playtesting on that. And this weekend was the first demos, which was really awesome. And I think the exact quote was, they will be under your tree for Christmas. So that is pretty good to know. So it gives us a little bit of time to get some stuff painted and learn how to play before next Adepticon. Excuse me. So last thing I want to do, I want to talk a little bit about the demo game that I had. So I stopped by the Warlord booth many times throughout the course of the convention. But I stopped by Friday afternoon, and Pete gave me a quick demo game. So the forces were set up. I was playing as the Germans. He was playing as the Americans. So I had 2 3-man squads of power armored infantry, a spinny mech, or spine mech is what I want to call it, but spinny, the little German spider mech with the machine gun and the light autocannon, and then I had a hero character in power armor. And then the American side, Pete was playing the Americans, had 2 3-man squads of Fireflies, so the jump infantry. They had, I think, Slammer Samuels was the stand-in. We weren't really using the name character, but that was the model he was using as a stand-in for his hero. And then he had a Mud Skipper armed with a Tesla cannon. So that was kind of interesting. I don't remember a lot of the specifics, but it was pretty good. And I apologize for not taking better notes. I was just trying to wrap my head around some of the mechanics, and then promptly managed to get my memory a little fuzzy later that night, hanging out with my friends in the Heresy Hall. But that's how it goes. So I think I took 2 pictures. I hardly took any pictures throughout the entire weekend, which is, it's unfortunate, but at the same time, it's like you're wrapped up having fun. You're not thinking about taking pictures. So that was a pretty neat thing. But it played pretty smooth. I don't have much experience with first edition of Konflikt 47. I mean, there's still time for me to learn it, but I know that, the new edition's coming down the pipe and will be here before too long. So, I'm going to work on painting up some models I know I can use for it, and going from there and looking forward to the new edition. So I know, I can't say when, but I know that, they'll be giving us more information. This was just kind of the first splash release. Hey guys, it's like, we are legit. We have been working on this for a long time. And we've known that because it was shortly after Adepticon last year when they announced that Andy Chambers and Roger Garish were joining the writing team for Konflikt 47. And it's kind of funny because when that announcement came out, I had to email somebody and just be like, hey, what are the odds I was working on my Schreckwolf and you announced this? So that was kind of cool. So we know they've been working on it for a long time. And they're into playtesting. And there was a question by one of the presenters, hey, how would you guys feel about a public playtest? And that was met with a resounding cheers from the entire assembled crowd at the event. So that's the information that I got so far. And that is all from the preview event at Adepticon. Like I said, I'm sure we will be getting more information. A lot of people are just be patient. They are working on it. They're really working hard on it, trying to do the best they can to give us the best game, because they're gamers too. They really enjoy it too. They like it too. So they want to give us the best experience that they can. So yeah, just kind of hang in there. I'm sure we'll get more information. Check out the Warlord Games community website. I can't remember the exact name of it. I'll try and link that down below for you. But yeah, it's coming. They're working on it. It's looking great. And I think we're all going to be pretty happy with it. So just hang in there and start getting those mechs painted, start getting those tanks painted, getting those wolves and bears painted. Just start working on it. Cause I think we're all going to be ready to get going as soon as this is here. So yeah. So that was the preview event, plus, a little bit from what I can remember of my preview game of Konflikt 47. So yeah, I hope that was useful to everybody. Kind of helps build some hype. I think I'm just kind of rambling now. So, all right. So thank you very much, folks, for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this gave you some of the information and maybe answered some questions for you. Again, I don't know a lot of specifics on how certain units are going to operate compared to how they operated in the first edition. I don't know that. We didn't get in, far enough into that to really understand it. And I think they're trying to work out a lot of it, because these are still just the playtest rules. There's still a lot of stuff they gotta work on. They gotta sort out. So again, just be patient. And I think we'll be excited when we get there. And it may not seem that close now, but here we are. It's almost April. We're almost in the second quarter. So the fourth quarter is going to be here before you know it. So yeah. So like I said, I will put the link for the Warlord Community article in the description down below. You can also check out all my social media links, kind of see some of the few pictures that I did post from Adepticon, as well as hit that affiliate link to head over to Warlord Games. You can see what they've got currently in the range, see what you want to pick up to get ready for the imminent release. I shouldn't say imminent, but it's coming. It's coming. So thank you very much for watching. I sure hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was useful for you and kind of answered some questions. And until next time, folks, may your paints be thin, your brushes be pointy, and your dice be hot.